Hi, this is Michael David Cobb Bowen for Cobb Vision, coming to you at my normal midnight time. Um, this evening's topic, I'd like to talk about Kwanzaa. And I say it with a little bit of water in my eyes because the hateration has already begun. But I want to give you some background on it and get this video blog into the circulation. First thing you need to know is that I was there. I was the Z in the first Kwanzaa. My parents were not in the US organization. We were hanging out with Dr. Alfred Lagan. Those of you who know anything about the history of Black Los Angeles would know Dr. Lagan's Aquarium Bookstore was the first and largest black bookstore on the West Coast. And he owned also a building on what was Santa Barbara Boulevard, which became King Boulevard sometime in the 70s. And it was at the Aquarian Center where a great number of black intellectuals would coalesce around the Aquarian bookstore and the Aquarian Center to actually meet and talk about the issues of the day. I'm going to try to be brief because there's really so much to talk about. When we talk about the origins of Kwanzaa, you really have to put it in that context about what was going on with the black arts, black consciousness, and black nationalism movements at the time. And the fundamental thing that most people seem to misinterpret and get completely wrong when they start fetishizing on Karenga is of his Marxist origins and his orientation as a black partisan. But the basic lesson that I would like you to take from this is to understand in the context of what was being taught on American college campuses with economics. That is to say, being a Marxist in the 60s was fairly mainstream if you looked at the economics departments of American universities. And there is a certain intellectuality that anybody who has actually studied a Marxist analysis will be able to tell you. And it happens in contrast. It's a secular kind of value system that goes in contrast to a religious doctrine. All that is to say is that if you are looking to come up with a strategy to move people forward, then there is a natural, I don't want to say antagonism, but there are unique things that a Marxist analysis can offer. Now, I'm not a Marxist, and I in fact, am a conservative and have no sympathies for Marxism other than its use as an analytic tool to understand something about capitalism. And most economists today will agree that Marxist analysis does that. But the point in using it in the context of Kwanzaa, or that Karenga was a Marxist, was to do what I call break the political stranglehold of the Negro Church. Now, this is a stranglehold that, to a certain extent, continues to this day, and you basically have to ask yourself, if you are having a nationalist political movement and you seek to change the policies of the government, or you seek to raise the educational level and the discourse level of the masses of people, then there's going to be some conflict between the local churches and the economic intellectuals. It's the same thing I can imagine with certain plays on Broadway. I don't think you would find, now see, I'm going to take an egregious example that I don't really know what I'm talking about, but Tennessee Williams, for example. I think if Tennessee Williams added anything of intellectual value to the American theater, he would do it in contradistinction to what goes on Sunday morning from the pulpit. And obviously there will be some friction. But this is not a friction that continues by celebrants of Kwanzaa. That is to say, the reconciliation between Christianity and Kwanzaa has already happened, because the split was made in order to establish blackness. That is to say, to go from Negro to black, to elevate the level of consciousness, to eliminate the Negro problem, to establish all of the positive things that can be associated with black that didn't exist prior to the invention of the term. And so what you had really was, let us say, some kind of foot dragging, some of it good and some of it bad, by established leaders of the Negro Church in Los Angeles and other places, that intellectuals who might hang out at bookstores, who have literacy or literature as their religion, especially those who would follow the footsteps of Dr. Lagan, who was a philosopher of the First Order, would have some conflict. And so, as I said, the conflict has been subsumed because black consciousness won. Black nationalism won. In fact, it overproduced, and it created an expectation of unity that we still deal with today that's not necessarily useful. So anybody who would say that people who celebrate Kwanzaa are under the delusions of and walking in lockstep to Ron Karenga has to be, smoking crack, because Karenga is less influential than Al Sharpton. And again, these are arguments that I get into better detail. For example, you won't find very many criticisms of the Nguzo Saba itself. You have a series of ad hominem attacks on Karenga, which smears celebrants of Kwanzaa, without even talking about what it is that the Kwanzaa celebrants are celebrating. There is no legitimate values-based attack on Kwanzaa. There is only the ad hominem attack and the insult to celebrants, which suggests that we're all zombies in blind obedience to a known felon. There's not much a defense of Karenga that I intend to do here, other than to mention there were a lot of people on the enemies list of the FBI in the 60s, and saying that he was an enemy of the FBI in the 60s, or was clearly a prominent black Marxist thinker, it's kind of redundant. It's kind of not even worth mentioning. But he was convicted and he paid his debt to society. That's neither here nor there. We don't light candles in remembrance of Karenga. We light them for the principles of the Nguzo Saba. So I run out of steam on that rant. Basically, I would also like to say that I celebrate Christmas. Didn't always celebrate Christmas, and there are a lot of people who, like in my family, who grew up in the East Coast Episcopalian faith, who feel that Christmas got a little bit too materialistic. And my father wrote poetry, and he wrote one about Santa Claus, which I remember reciting in the 7th grade. It started off, "Santa Claus, I hate you because you stink." But I think there are all kinds of legitimate reasons to criticize materialism and shallowness with which people celebrate Xmas, and that's nothing new either. So I really question whether it is a good exercise of even evangelistic judgment to go after celebrants of Kwanzaa in defense of Christmas, as if Christmas were really under attack by lunatic Marxists. If Christmas is under attack, if the true meaning of the birth of Jesus Christ is under attack, it would be under attack by crass commercialism, and we might as well start with how about Will Ferrell and his Elf movie, which goes on about Santa Claus. But um, I think it's actually not a very good use of Christian judgment to attack Kwanzaa celebrants and characterize them as mindless zombies who are perpetrating a fraud. The other angle of this that we hear a lot about is whether or not um, Kwanzaa is authentically African, and that Swahili is an East African language. Uh, that's actually something else that I know something about, although I've forgotten most of my Swahili. We did speak Swahili in my home because I have family who were actually in West Africa. We spoke French as well. And a lot of my cousins spoke French and still do pretty well. Um, but the idea, of course, was that, of course, Jomo Kenyatta was the first black ruler of Kenya, and there was a Pan-African movement at the time as well. So you couldn't even really take the black consciousness movement. You can't take Kwanzaa alone without considering the black arts and black consciousness movements and the free speech movement. And you can't take those alone without considering international implications in the Pan-Africanist movement. So there was a movement afoot during the time that Kwanzaa was being invented that was to try to get the Negro beyond the context, the narrow context of the selfhood that America had offered thus far. So there was a real effort to get in touch with Africa, and like I said, my family did so. And Swahili was going to be kind of the linking language, and so it was natural that we would take Swahili because it was not just about being true to roots in West Africa. It was about forming real relations with contemporary Africans wherever they were on the continent, and that's what the Pan-African movement was all about. And it failed, but we didn't know that at the time. And as far as authentic research into what West Africans and Africans were doing, you have to understand this took place at the time before there was a such thing as African studies or African American studies on college universities. So we were just getting starting black student unions, much less having black studies and people with some scholarly discipline try to appropriately qualify the amount of cultural exchange that could be possible and what the different belief systems meant. We're way ahead of that these days. And these days, Kwanzaa has become, a kind of milquetoast commercial holiday. It's been accepted. There isn't really a Kwanzaa song, and there's every once in a while it's commercialized. I mean, I have lapsed out of Kwanzaa in my lifetime, having celebrated it exclusive of Christmas as a kid, and then with Christmas as a kid, and then abandoning it till later on in my adulthood, and then recovering it. And so I have a personal stake, and I feel like that I'm mature enough to serve as something of an example, being that I was actually there in the beginning, and that I feel like I bear some responsibility for this holiday. And so every year, about this time, I slog it out with other bloggers and commentators on Kwanzaa, who are bent on a little bit of Christian fundamentalist paranoia, which is kind of, I think, less than gracious, and certainly illustrates bad faith. And so I want to get this video out there so that you can put a human face and some what I think are fairly substantial arguments in defense of an ordinary Kwanzaa. And I've been in touch with some people who really get deeply into the theory. They've contacted me at my blog, and I can't say that I'm that responsible to the deeper meanings and the way that Kwanzaa has evolved over time in terms of a deep spiritual commitment. For me, that's still with Christianity, and I continue to study and find a deeper relationship with God. But the Nguzo Saba is good for what it is, and even though I have my own problem with Ujamaa as regards myself as a capitalist, I still don't see any fundamental conflict with Ujamaa or any of the principles of Kwanzaa with any good, solid spiritual values that you would find in any decent holiday. So I don't really take that as a fake holiday quite seriously. I mean, nobody even had Christmas trees in the United States before 1901, where I believe that was the first Christmas tree lot somewhere in New Jersey. I just read that the other day. And holidays change. And what's most important is the spirit of the people and the intent of the people who celebrate that holiday. And what does it cause them to do? So Kwanzaa has caused me to among other things, defend Kwanzaa, but also to recognize some of my responsibility to this real part of American history. And I'm trying to be faithful to it. And I'm not going to be perfect. I'm going to make mistakes. And then I'll have next year, because there will always be some people who just decide that they want to, crap all over Kwanzaa. But that's nothing is promised. So with that, I will sign off, and I will wish you all happy holidays in whatever your faith, and I hope spirit of love and community and all the good things that I can think of that my mind blanks out at the moment. I just wish you and your family and your friends and your enemies and your nemesis and everybody best wishes for the holiday season. Peace.